The laughter started before she even reached the table. It echoed through the bright conference hall, wrapped in expensive suits, polished smiles, and quiet arrogance. Someone had decided it would be amusing to make the single mom sit beside the quiet single dad at the annual leadership charity luncheon. They whispered that two lonely people deserved each other, that perhaps fate could entertain everyone for an afternoon. She lowered her eyes and accepted the seat with the dignity she had fought her entire life to protect. He simply nodded with a gentle smile, wearing plain clothes that made him seem completely ordinary. Nobody in that room imagined that by sunset, the same people who laughed would stand in stunned silence after discovering who the quiet man really was, and how one simple act of kindness would change every life in that room forever. Before we continue this unforgettable journey, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Heart of Resham if you believe in second chances. Your support helps bring more emotional stories of hope, kindness, and life-changing moments to people around the world. The single mother was named Eliana Brooks, a 33-year-old woman whose life had been measured not by luxury but by sacrifice. Every sunrise began with preparing breakfast for her 7-year-old daughter, Lily, before rushing to 2 different jobs just to keep the lights on in their tiny apartment. She had once dreamed of becoming an architect, but dreams slowly disappeared beneath unpaid bills, hospital visits for her late mother, and the endless responsibilities of raising a child alone. Even after years of struggle, Eliana refused to complain. She carried herself with quiet grace because she wanted Lily to believe that strength was not loud. It was patient. It was loving. It was waking up every morning despite having every reason to stay in bed. The invitation to the charity luncheon had come unexpectedly, through the community organization where she volunteered on weekends. The event was designed to connect hardworking parents with successful business leaders who funded scholarships and neighborhood programs. Eliana had borrowed a simple navy blue dress from her closest friend because buying a new one would have meant skipping groceries for the week. She entered the grand hotel feeling like she did not belong among crystal chandeliers and polished marble floors. Around her stood executives, investors, politicians, and wealthy donors who discussed million-dollar projects as casually as the weather. Across the ballroom sat a man named Rowan Mercer. He looked nothing like the billionaires everyone admired. His gray jacket had no designer label. His watch was old. His shoes showed signs of years of use. He carried himself with remarkable calm, speaking very little while observing everyone around him. Staff members treated him politely but without special attention. Some guests assumed he was a volunteer or perhaps a retired teacher, invited out of courtesy. Few bothered to learn his name. When organizers noticed one empty chair beside Rowan, a group of younger executives exchanged amused smiles. Someone jokingly suggested placing the single mom beside the single dad because they looked equally out of place among successful people. Their laughter spread quietly through nearby tables. The decision reached an event coordinator who unknowingly followed the suggestion. Eliana was guided toward Rowan's table while several guests hid their smirks behind coffee cups. She noticed the whispers immediately. Years of hardship had taught her how to recognize pity and mockery without hearing a single word. Still, she thanked the coordinator, sat down, and smiled politely toward Rowan. Instead of joining everyone else's amusement, Rowan greeted her with genuine warmth. His eyes reflected understanding rather than judgment. And for the first time since entering the ballroom, Eliana felt she could breathe normally. As lunch began, Rowan listened more than he spoke. He learned about Lily's love for painting, about Eliana's long workdays, and about her dream of returning to school someday. He never interrupted. He never offered empty sympathy. He simply listened with the respect every exhausted parent secretly wished someone would offer. Eliana noticed how carefully he thanked every server who brought water or cleared plates. When an elderly waitress accidentally dropped a spoon, Rowan stood immediately to help her gather everything before anyone else moved. The same executives who had laughed earlier rolled their eyes, believing he was simply trying too hard to appear kind. The afternoon program included speeches celebrating generosity and leadership. Speaker after speaker praised compassion while barely noticing the workers serving meals around them. Rowan quietly applauded every presentation but remained invisible to almost everyone. During a short break, Eliana stepped outside onto the hotel terrace to call Lily, who excitedly described a drawing she had finished after school. Listening to her daughter's joyful voice reminded Eliana why every sacrifice mattered. As she returned inside, she found Rowan standing alone near a garden overlooking the city skyline. The bright afternoon sunlight illuminated the peaceful expression on his face. He admitted that he also understood single parenthood. Years earlier, he had raised his son alone after losing his wife unexpectedly. Every sleepless night, every difficult decision, every hidden tear had taught him that real success meant protecting the people you loved, not impressing strangers. His son was now grown, living overseas with a family of his own, but Rowan still remembered every painful chapter that shaped their lives. Their conversation was interrupted when the event host suddenly rushed onto the stage with visible excitement. A special guest had unexpectedly arrived, someone described as the Anonymous, founder whose donations had quietly funded children's hospitals, scholarships, shelters, and educational programs across the country for nearly 20 years. Cameras turned toward the entrance. Executives straightened their jackets. Reporters prepared microphones. Everyone expected a famous billionaire surrounded by security. Instead, the master of ceremonies walked directly toward Rowan Mercer. The ballroom became completely silent. People watched in disbelief as organizers thanked Rowan for attending, anonymously every year to observe which organizations truly valued people rather than appearances. It was revealed that Rowan had built one of the nation's largest sustainable construction companies decades earlier before stepping away from public life after his wife's passing. Rather than seeking headlines, he had quietly donated hundreds of millions of dollars to causes, supporting single parents, affordable housing, and children's education. His foundation had transformed thousands of lives while protecting his privacy. The executives who laughed earlier stared at one another with pale faces. Their harmless joke had unknowingly mocked the very man whose generosity had funded many of their own charitable projects. Yet Rowan's expression showed no anger. He simply walked onto the stage with the same humble smile he had worn throughout lunch. Instead of speaking about business achievements, Rowan shared memories of struggling as a young, widowed father who once skipped meals so his son could eat. He described nights when loneliness felt heavier than hunger and mornings when hope arrived only because his little boy smiled before school. He explained that wealth had never rescued him from grief. Only kindness had, a neighbor who babysat without asking for payment, a teacher who quietly purchased school supplies, a stranger who once paid for groceries without expecting thanks. Those small acts had inspired him to spend the rest of his life becoming that stranger for someone else. Then Rowan surprised everyone once again. He invited Eliana to stand beside him. The audience watched as the nervous single mother slowly approached the stage. Rowan explained that while many successful people spent the afternoon discussing leadership, only one person had treated him like an ordinary human being, without expecting anything in return. She had shared her story honestly, thanked every employee she met, and never once asked who he was or what he owned. She respected him before she knew his name mattered to anyone else. With cameras recording every moment, Rowan announced that his foundation would fully fund Eliana's education, so she could finally pursue architecture. He also established a scholarship for Lily through college and expanded a nationwide support program for thousands of single parents, inspired by Eliana's resilience. Tears filled the ballroom as applause slowly grew into a standing ovation. The executives who had laughed earlier approached, Eliana with embarrassed expressions, but she held no bitterness. Years of hardship had taught her that forgiveness often healed the person offering it more than the one receiving it. Rowan later explained that true character always reveals itself when nobody believes you are important. Titles disappear, expensive clothing fades, reputation changes, but kindness remains visible forever.